ask you a question. I don't know what this is because I'm from New York. What is a New York steak? What is that, a piece of meat with soot and dirt all over it? What is that? Right, and written on the side, call Mary, 711.
With more at manfromyesterday.com.
Single-family houses and apartments are the key to passive income, a.k.a. retirement. No one knows this better than America's most successful investor, educator, self-made multimillionaire, and CEO of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley. Meet Del's team live in Mountain View. 2 days only at the Hyatt Centric Mountain View. Saturday and Sunday, October 21st and 22nd. To attend, register now at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. That's GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Limited seating, unlimited potential. Register today at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com.
Growing up, I absorbed a lot of values from my old Texas daddy. A strong commitment to the common good, a healthy work ethic, and a lively sense of humor. But one thing about him I've rejected: his determination to have a perfect yard of thick, verdant St. Augustine grass. Lord, how he worked at it. Laying sod, watering, fertilizing, watering, weeding, watering, spreading pesticides, watering, mowing, more watering. But it was too hot, too dry, too infested with blight, bugs, slugs, and such. He was up against Texas nature, and he just couldn't win. So I've gone in the opposite direction, slowly nurturing a natural yard of native trees, drought-tolerant plants, and a general live-with-nature ethic in my little landscape. I'm hardly alone in this rejection of the uniform green grass imperative. A spontaneous yard rebellion is taking hold across our country as more and more households, neighborhoods, businesses, etc. shift to a nature-friendly approach. A particularly encouraging push for change is coming from school kids, elementary level through college, who are appalled by the poisoning of our globe and organizing locally to do something that both makes a difference and makes a statement. One exemplary channel for their activism is a student movement called Rewild Your Campus. Of course, some people consider wild yards to be scruffy, ugly, unruly. That's their choice, but some also insist that tidy grass lawns must be everyone's choice. So they proclaim themselves to be the yard police, demanding that cities and homeowner associations make green grass uniformity the law. They filed busybody lawsuits and run right-wing social media campaigns targeting people and groups that disobey. This is Jim Hightower saying, these attacks are silly because they are silly, and also because they're attacking the future. To work for yard sanity and choice, go to rewild.org. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
KCAA Loma Linda. The Legacy KCAA 1050 AM and Express 106.5 FM.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. So a little major computer malfunction to start today's program. I think we've got everything under control thus far. So if you got a thought, question, comment, something in your mind, want to hear about it. Here's something interesting. Peter Navarro, guilty of contempt of Congress. Now it's interesting. 74-year-old Navarro, he had the one day of testimony, 3 prosecution witnesses, no defense witnesses. Didn't put up a defense, but he said, "Hey, basically knew he was going to get convicted. He's looking for the appeal." He could spend years behind bars. And what's interesting is, again, this is what, being a friend of I guess of what Trump gets you. Maybe this is how this works. Because according to the Washington Post, over the past week, there have been a number of sentences handed down. You had the Ricky Tario, 22 years. You got that Joe Biggs, 17 years. A number of other ones. But, of all of the folks so far, about 700 years in jail sentences being handed down. More than 350 people have been sentenced to jail or prison time. Average sentence a little less than 2 years. And like I said from the beginning, the early sentences should have been longer. You probably would have gotten more people coming around to saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe turning around, testifying against others." May have made things a little bit easier. I don't know. But here's the thing. Trump's got their backs. Trump has their backs, especially the new ones. I didn't help the other ones. But the new co-defendants, he's going to hold a fundraiser. Evidently planning a big candlelight dinner fundraiser with the sons there at Mar-a-Lago. He says they say they're going to try and raise between $500,000 and $1 million. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people are going to start flipping, because you start seeing people trying to sever themselves in other areas. Yeah, going to be an interesting couple of days. Now, for me, I've been paying attention to some of the other stuff, like this John Eastman. If you saw, evidently Eastman during the disbarment hearing, evidently refused to talk about January 6th. I mean, he was asked about conversations that were had with Trump and Chuck Grassley about Mike Pence. Now, one of the weird things again about January 6th, and something I think we've talked about a couple of times over the last couple of years, is Grassley. If you remember, Grassley evidently told reporters that he was going to preside over, Senate debate over disputes in the 2020 election. And the quote was, "Well, first of all, I will be, if the vice president isn't there and we don't expect him to be there, I will be presiding over the Senate." This is the word. This is what he said, and this is what got people freaked out, because what do you know? This was the day before. This was January 5th. What do you know that you're not telling us? What's going on here, Chuck? And he's now saying, well, I was misunderstood, misquoted, whatever. But why didn't Eastman defend himself on this? Why didn't Eastman say anything about it? Tried to bail on it. Evidently, and this is another one of those moments where somebody was expecting Mike Pence not to be there. Someone was expecting him to be somewhere else, which is interesting because Pence refused to get into the car with the Secret Service. This is one of those weird moments where, again, I think there's a lot more that Pence isn't saying. There's a lot more there that I don't know, that you got to wonder, if he gets in the car with the Secret Service, where does he go? What undisclosed location does he end up in? Does he end up in a bunker somewhere? Now, of course, Eastman said that he refused to answer questions because it's attorney-client privilege. And he was asked who was the client, and Trump. Trump was the client. This is the thing that just drives me crazy, though, because these are supposed to be people who are patriots. These are supposed to be the people who love the country. These are supposed to be folks who are, I don't know, they wave the flag enough. They puff their chest out enough. It's one of those things where you got to ask some interesting questions. And I look at the trial. I hope that the hope gets televised. I want to find out what happened on January 6th. Because look, they've done a great job of spinning the narrative. I have some Trump supporter friends who, quite frankly, don't believe anything that they hear. I actually asked someone about this. They go, well, there's always an excuse. That's just the liberal media. No, those were Chuck Grassley's words. You saw the reporting on it. You saw this. Pence himself saying, you stuck on in that parking deck. They built a gallows. I mean, what part of this are you? No, it didn't happen. And for me, I want to see the truth. I want to see what comes of this. Because ultimately, I got to tell you, I don't know as a country I don't know that we can get past January 6th. I mean, I see it as one of those really important moments in the country's history that there needs to be absolute transparency. And what's interesting is anytime I bring something up, I get from my Red Hat crowd the canned responses. This was the FBI's doing it. It was Antifa, and my head just starts to spin because I'm going, look, I didn't see any Antifa folks there. I didn't see anybody under the Antifa flag wearing the Antifa uniform with the Antifa membership card. I didn't see any of that. I saw a lot of people who look like me. I saw a lot of people who you see at Trump rallies. I saw a lot of them. I'm waiting for the day when it because it's spinning, because I actually know a couple people who were there, and they're quite upfront about it. I was there. It was a patriotic thing. We were rescuing the country, and I'm struggling with the polar opposite excuses of It was a patriotic day. Nothing happened. It's all a hoax. It's all made up. It's all a sham. It's all the liberal media. And then on the other hand, we were defending the country. We were stopping the steal. And I'm going, so which is it? And this is, again, I come back to, how do you hold two opposite views inside your head and continue to fight that? So I'm in a weird spot. I'm in a weird spot with some of this stuff because, man, I just look at what's going on in that courtroom. And I look at what's going on in places that we desperately need the truth to be shared. And I'm hoping people are paying attention. I'm hoping ultimately it's gonna come down to us seeing with our own eyes what happens. And then answering the question, do we believe in the rule of law? On either side. Look, I mean, because I've had people, what happens if Trump's not found guilty? That's our system. The reality is our system is set up where 1,000, guilty men go free as opposed to one innocent man going to jail. Maybe that's one of the guilty get away. But again, when I read the indictments, there's a lot there. And this is where, as a juror, as a citizen, as someone coming to it, you're going to have to, those people are going to be put in an interesting spot, because already what we know is there will be threats, there will be intimidation. They're already trying to taint the jury pool. Prosecutors are already saying, look, he's doing all this social media stuff, which, again, as much as you may not like it, it's his right to speak publicly about this stuff. But it's our responsibility as citizens, as Americans, to believe in the system. Because, look, don't tell me you believe in the Constitution. Don't tell me you believe in any of that stuff. The founding principles or any of that patriotic flag-waving stuff, if you don't follow the rule of law, if you don't follow our system. If you're going to give Trump and his ilk a special pass, I don't know where to go from there. But I got lots to get to today. This is again another one of these interesting moments. And of course today all what breaks loose. As my wife is off doing her thing for the weekend. So no screener today. So if you call, we'll go direct to air. My son's car breaks down, so I'm dealing with that. And then, of course, to start the show, the computers all just, for some reason, maybe it was the Russians. I don't know. But it's been an interesting day. But we will soldier through it and move forward. It just, something that's never happened before. Never had the whole system just go, we're going to take a break. That was. I've been doing this 18 years now, and I've never had that kind of, everything is just going to stop. That is how my day has begun. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, want to hear it. Also, if you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Sarah Burst is going to be here, reporter over at Raw Story, going to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. Maybe get some thoughts on the Chuck Grassley thing, because I got to tell you, I'm still weirded out that Chuck freaking Grassley could be eyeballs deep in this. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2011. That was the day hundreds of ILWU strikers blocked railroad tracks near Longview, Washington. They hoped to stop grain shipments from moving in and out of the EGT grain terminal. Longshoremen had been sitting down on the tracks throughout the summer, resulting in over 100 arrests. No trains had moved in or out of the terminal since July. But then a federal judge issued an injunction against ILWU pickets. The BNSF Railroad tried to move grain once again. ILWU picketers in Vancouver were able to hold off the train until police forcibly dispersed the crowd. Then, hundreds gathered at Longview to block the train from coming in. That's when police went on the offensive. They used clubs and pepper spray against the longshoremen, arresting 19. They threw ILWU President Bob McElrath to the ground. Rumors spread that police had broken his arm. Hundreds of regional longshoremen rushed to Longview. The Seattle and Tacoma ports shut down in protest. The next morning, 10,000 tons of grain were opened onto the railroad tracks. The grain export terminal was the first to be built in the Pacific Northwest in almost 30 years. EGT hoped to undercut the powerful ILWU, who controlled operations at the port since its founding in the 1930s. The union refused to agree to work 12-hour shifts at straight time. The EGT hoped to break the hiring hall by refusing to recognize maintenance and inside workers at the terminal. They then attempted to fill jobs with workers from the operating engineers, but the ILWU persevered. By the end of January, EGT had backed off many of its demands, negotiations resumed, and days later, the contract was signed.
A few days ago, the city of Savannah, Georgia took an important symbolic step toward racial inclusiveness, naming one of Savannah's 23 historic public squares for a black woman. Susie King Taylor, born in 1848 to enslaved parents, became a renowned educator, setting up schools for emancipated children and adults, a laudable role model in America's ongoing struggle to extend equal opportunity to all. Before adding Taylor's name, though, the name that had been plastered on that square 170 years ago, John C. Calhoun, had to be subtracted. Council members did that last year, finding the South Carolina senator and two-time vice president unworthy of any public honor. Why? Well, why would Georgians of 1853 create a monument to a lawmaker from another state? Answer: slavery. No politician in our history has been a more vehement apologist and promoter of human enslavement than Calhoun. Thus, racist Southern leaders revered him. A rich son of plantation privilege, Calhoun owned dozens of slaves. More shamefully, he built his political career by fabricating a hokey economic theory asserting that slavery was such a, quote, positive good that even white workers in northern factories should be converted to slave laborers. Worst of all, Calhoun opposed the democratic ideal of majority rule, crying that it allowed the many to interfere with the freedom of the elite property class, his own, to do what they wish with their properties, including slaves. He even favored outright plutocracy, proposing that the rich should be given a special right to overturn laws they don't like. This is Jim Hightower saying, while Savannah is doing the right thing by saying no to this autocrat, beware. For the Koch brothers network of today's plutocratic billionaires is organizing to impose his plutocratic order over us. To learn more, go to truenorthresearch.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So evidently, Vivek Ramaswamy and CNN are at odds. Evidently, they're locked in a dispute over. Evidently, there was supposed to be a town hall with Vivek, and evidently he was announcing it. You know that there was, and evidently it wasn't. This is one of those things. One of those weird things about this guy, where he's that kind of pushy. Where if you say, hey, we should do a town hall, he's already picked the date, the time, and is going to push them. And it's going to be interesting to see this if he gets one. I'm going to be interested to see if he gets one. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top story of the day. Our good friend Sarah Burris, she's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website, if you want to check out the work that she does. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, happy Thursday.
Happy day to you as well. So Vivek, do you think he gets a town hall? Do you think he goes and he does his little Trump wannabe worst kind of person impression thing there?
I think he probably does, just because he seems to be the kind of pushy dude who's like entitled and believes that he should get whatever he wants. And CNN sort of operates like they don't want to upset anybody, regardless of who they are. And so I think that he's probably going to be a squeaky wheel on this and get whatever the heck he wants.
Yeah, see, at this point, if I was at CNN, I'm like, no.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Be like, you burned that bridge, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're never going to be the guy anyway.
Right?
See, this is the thing. I mean, this is where politics for me has really just become reality TV, and bad reality TV. Because, the model is if you've watched reality TV, and to be honest, I haven't watched a lot of it, but it's always the a-hole that you remember from every show. The person who was nice, the person who were decent, you don't remember them. They got voted out early. It's always the person who was the backstabbing, snivelly little rat that seems to get the most attention. There he is.
People have written dissertations on this, like dating back to the Real World on MTV. Like the person who was like the meanest on the shows. Remember the one dude from Survivor, the bald dude that everybody hated. I mean, there's just like everybody. Omarosa is a good example. Look at what has happened to her career, and now she's going to end up. They have a whole show now around villains that they're putting together in a reality show, and you're just like, wow, it's a reality show about reality shows. Like, that's how meta we've gone.
Oh my goodness. That's really the sad reality of where we are.
I feel like this is the sort of Mayan prediction of the downfall of society, the reality show about reality show. Like somewhere there's a pyramid that has this like sketched out, and we just haven't found it yet.
No, it's weird. But here's the thing. I'm watching some of the some of the statements going on, coming out of Georgia, and it's actually the fake electors coming out of Michigan. I'm looking at all this stuff. It seems like, and maybe you're going to help me here, but it seems like Rudy Giuliani is going to be the guy who takes the fall, I think, for just about everything.
I don't know, because it seems like Sidney Powell has some sketchy behavior that she's dabbled in. And because of the whole Georgia thing, like that she and Ken Cheeseborough want their trials to be on the rapid response, whatever, like they're fast tracking their trials. It kind of means that this is going to be our first crack at all of this. And so, I mean, it can kind of obviously go either way, but Sidney Powell just looks really bad in a lot of these cases. And obviously she's already dealing with being disbarred. And so I don't know if it's Rudy. I don't know if it's Powell. It seems like some of them, like Jenna Ellis, are thinking about flipping. We saw this week that we got a confirmation from the special counsel, Jack Smith, that the IT guy has confirmed that he is now a cooperating witness. I mean, it's been a heck of a week, and it's been a really bad one for Donald Trump.
No, we were talking about this, my producer and I, we were talking about it, yesterday a little bit, about we should start doing a flip watch, and start, because at some point the rats are going to all jump ship, because they know that one, the money is not going to be there to help them, because Trump has a history of stiffing lawyers and people that he owes money to, and two, as it looks like he may not become president, do you bet your life on a potential pardon?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what happened with the Proud Boys. They had an option to take significantly lower sentences. Like, we're talking 6 to 8 years. They could have agreed to plead guilty and get that in prison. Now you got Enrique Tarrio, who's in there for 22 years. Some of them are, it's from like 15 to 20 years. It's bad. And you think about, Rudy Giuliani obviously is so old, and I don't know what happens if he gets sent to Rikers Island, right? But it's one of those things where Michael Cohen and I've actually talked about this, where he's like, there are certain people that you do not throw under the bus. And your lawyer is one of them because they know everything. And Rudy Giuliani has had a relationship with Donald Trump for a very long time. So he kind of does know everything. And Rudy has the power to basically throw Trump under the bus. And Trump doesn't want to pay his legal fees.
But
And
they're going to have they're going to have a candlelight dinner.
Right, it was like family style dinner at Bedminster, and it's like, dude, you're asking your friends to give money to him, and I mean he's racking up serious legal bills, but you're too much of a, hard butt to sign off on a check to him. That just seems like, again, it's the Michael Cohen philosophy: if you never screw over your lawyer.
Yeah. No, because you're right. They know where the bodies are buried, and this is one of those weird things where it's surprising to me that Trump would give these people that much information, given the fact that he's been so secretive over the years and keeping only a select few around him, and it's a weird moment.
It is, but what is funny, like, speaking of the people that he keeps around him, some of these, the IT guy who's a cooperator, there are a couple of other people that have, who had Trump-funded lawyers who have now decided that they are going to get their own lawyers, which that's kind of an indication that they're sort of looking to either make a deal or cooperate, or they're ready to throw Trump under the bus too. And I was watching an interview with, of all people, Chris Christie, and he was just like, you just know that Donald Trump is going to lay awake at night, every night, just thinking, crap, what did I say to them? What did I say to them? And it's true.
Do you think so? Do you think Trump has that kind of introspection?
I think he'll be afraid. I don't know that he'll be like, oh my God, what did I say to them? It'll be more like, oh crap, I said something stupid to them and I am screwed. Because he has no filter, and so he's said everything and done everything. And I mean, especially with the IT guy, he's the one who basically was told, kill the closed circuit, the security videos, right? So I mean, that already is confirmation of obstruction of justice. So I mean, they've already got him on that. So it's just, there's a lot of hurt going on with the Trump world right now.
Do you think it's going to matter though? I mean, because I'm getting tons of responses from my red hat friends who are, Trump's going to be back, and when you're going to be sorry, and this kind of, whatever's going on in court doesn't matter. What's ever going on, because look, my red hat world thinks this is all just a giant witch hunt. But when you start laying out the things that he's being accused of, it's hard to deny that he actually did all these things.
No, that's the thing is if you watch these cases, and particularly with Georgia, I think it'll be a big deal because it'll be on television. They're going to walk through it just like the January 6th committee did. And what happened whenever the country was watching the January 6th hearings is it flipped the public opinion very quickly. And there's just not enough Trump supporters out there. So, I really think that it's going to make a difference with folks. And again, like, his biggest problem, Donald Trump's biggest problem, is that he can't appeal to anyone other than his base.
Yeah. But what do you say? Because I've had a number of people reach out recently and go, so, here's the thing, Biden and Trump are neck and neck. Even with all of this horrible, Trump is still way ahead of everyone else in the Republican primary. And some polling says he may actually win in the general. How's that even possible?
Yeah, that's not even possible. So a couple of the polls, like the thing with the CNN poll that was released today, they oversampled Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. And so whenever you have a pollster that's doing that, I'm asking why, and what is the goal here? And, is this really just about getting a story for CNN? And the thing about national polls too is national polls don't decide an election.
Right.
It's the state polls and it's the swing state polls. And the other piece of it is Donald Trump has been campaigning since the day he left office. Joe Biden hasn't, been on the campaign trail at all. He hasn't even started to fight Donald Trump yet. He hasn't even said Donald Trump's name. He's like mentioned him, the other guy or the guy before me. So I feel like, you know, the campaign, Joe Biden's campaign, is just sort of starting to get off the ground. They're just starting to hire some people. They've just put out like their first ads. And, you know, if you've got the guy who is doing nothing, who is doing no campaigning at all whatsoever and just doing the governing, versus the guy who's been campaigning for years, and you're neck and neck, that's a problem.
Well, I see that, but I'm like, the guy's been indicted, you know, what, 91 felonies or some outrageous number like this, and then the record that he had was terrible. And I love the tweet yesterday that Joe Biden put out, said the last guy didn't build a damn thing. And there's a picture of Trump, you know, making promises, and there's Biden saying, "Look, it's infrastructure decade. We're creating millions of jobs." I think that's the message. I think that's what they have to hammer every single day.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's been kind of the biggest problem with the White House, is that, and I think with Biden in particular, his whole history is keeping his head down and doing his job. He gets stuff done. He gets sort of caught up in the minutia with the senators. You know, he was like in on the whole negotiation thing with a bunch of, you know, the legislation, and I think that's because he likes that kind of stuff. That's, you know, shaking hands is all well and good, and he loves to, you know, get ice cream and meet people, but, you know, getting up on stage and talking about stuff, you know, is just, you know, he's going to say what he means. And I think he's sort of gun shy about that now. He doesn't want to screw stuff up. And it's like, dude, just talk about what you've done, man. Like, yeah. just pimp out that stuff, because that's amazing and everybody loves it.
Just go out there and be the human gaffe machine that you are.
Exactly. Like, that is the thing. The whole thing about his gaffes is that it makes him so, I think, relatable. And I don't know, that always made me really think of my grandpa and like appreciate that piece of him. So, and the guy's smart. Like, here's the thing: he can talk about the bills, he can talk about legislation, he can sure as heck talk about foreign policy. Donald Trump is just going to talk about, you know,
Donald Trump,
how, yeah, himself and North Korea, and that's really all he's got.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is one of the, again, another one of these, you brought up North Korea. This is one of the, we're in this weird moment where you've got now Russia and North Korea and China, you know, and it's, we're in a weird kind of political global position, because if Trump is reelected, I don't know which side of the divide the U.S. ends up on in the event that, well, Russia takes Ukraine, and do they go to, you know, Poland next? And do they get the old band back together? And then which side are we on?
I know that is a thing I think that I've heard some of the other G20 states are concerned about, that they're talking about sort of behind the scenes. And so I'm especially the fact that the G20 is going to be in India this time. It's going to be interesting to watch, you know, how things go there this time around. But you're right. Like, I don't know what it looks like. But at the same time, like, Trump is talking about jailing his opponents. So I'm like, crap, do we need to like find a country to flee to? I mean, it's unsettling.
No, but here's the thing. This is where my Red Hat crowd folks, you know, the threats that I get are no longer I'm coming for you. Trump's coming, and they're gonna deal with people like you. There's a plan. You know, there's the 2025 plan, and the Heritage Foundation's behind it. We're bringing back patronage. We're gonna be attacking, we're gonna be attacking political government workers. You wait, it's gonna be great.
I mean, it's hard to say, oh, that'll never happen, because we've seen what can happen. I think the big thing, the most important piece, will be what parts of Congress we keep. We've got a whole bunch of redistricting stuff going on right now, so it may very well be that the Republicans can't keep the House, which is hilarious. But we've got some Senate seats that we got to fight for this time around. So, you know, think about it. We need that Congress to be solid and reasonable. Otherwise, you know, God knows what Trump could do to us.
We're gonna take an adventure moment here, and we're gonna go to the phone lines and see who's on line one. Who we got on the line, and what's on your mind?
Hello?
Yeah, that's you. What's on your mind?
Yes, this is Steve from Chicago.
Hey, Steve.
And I think it's a really interesting. Yes, thank you for taking my call. I think it's a really interesting topic because, those of us old enough to remember the Republican Party of old, remember when, they fought for decades against the evils of the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Empire and how they were going to take over the world someday. And I'm just amazed. Vladimir Putin came out of the KGB tradition. He was actually part of that institution. And how is it that Republicans now are just willing to look the other way? So in other words, when it was an evil communist empire, totalitarian regime, it had to be defeated at all costs. We had to fund NATO. We had to engage with them around the world, Korea, Vietnam, you name it. But now that it's not officially a communist state any longer, then totalitarian rule and aggression is just fine. I mean, I don't know how you do the intellectual gymnastics that are required to get from that to where we are now of a Republican Party that basically says, oh, Russia, you want to invade people? Go ahead. We don't care. We're not going to intervene. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. How are these the people who love Reagan and who proclaim him as Saint Reagan somehow? Ronald Reagan would be rolling over in his grave to find out that Russian aggression was being unchecked.
No, I'm right there with you. Sir, you want to jump in?
Oh, Steve is 100% correct. I think at this point in the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan would be a Democrat. That's the thing that's so
Again, he'd
crazy
be back to
here.
being a Democrat?
Yeah, I think he would be because he's, anti-Russia. And I mean, that's the thing that Steve's saying is that the Republican Party has changed so dramatically. For anybody who was paying the slightest bit of attention through the 80s, like my parents were, those are the Republicans who are just like, what on earth have you done? And those people are the ones that you're losing. Like, those are the folks that are just like, no, I'm done with you.
Yeah, but the way I see it is the reason that, and the way it's been explained to me is the reason the Republicans are pro-Putin is he hates the same people they do. Gays, minorities, the others. So, in that world, and he's hyper-capitalist. So at least that's what I'm told.
And if I can add this, for people who are paying attention, there's been, this sort of downturn in terms of how we look at the Soviet Union. I'm sorry, in the car here. We look at the Soviet Union, and there's been also revisionism with regard to the Nazis and Adolf Hitler and so forth. All of a sudden, they're not quite as bad as we framed it.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure that sort of thing is on the ascendancy, because 30 years ago, if you would have said it, you'd have been laughed out of a classroom or you would have been ridiculed. We fought the Nazis for a reason. Your grandparents died there, fighting them. We fought 2 wars in the 20th century, and to save Europe. And then this idea that now, the Nazis were misunderstood and really, we need to shift the blame as to who we really hate, because it's China and other places, and Vladimir Putin and Russia, they aren't really that bad.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I appreciate the call, Steve. Thanks so much. Good stuff.
Thank you.
No, I mean, this is one of those weird moments, and I've been talking about this for a while because I grew up during the 80s. I remember mutual assured destruction. I remember we were at odds, and to see that the party of Reagan, to see the Republicans doing what they're doing right now is kind of frightening. And I go back to what I said, and I stand by it. I don't know what side, if Trump is in the Oval Office, I don't know what side of a war in Europe we take.
I don't know either. The thing that Steve was pointing out is it really has become, and you were saying with the Republican Party, the enemy is my friend. The people who are against the gays, against, all of these different groups, those are my friends now. And we've seen how that movie plays out in other countries, and it really does not work well long term.
Yeah.
So, again, for a lot of countries that have been out there for more than 250 years, they have kind of a broader perspective on things, and I just don't know why. I don't know why Republicans have decided that they are willing to compromise that piece of themselves, particularly Republicans in the Senate. Like, that's the thing that blows my mind is it's like, you people know better because you were around during World War II. You're 900 years old. Like, Chuck Grassley, for real. Chuck Grassley is like 100 years old or something, right? Like, I mean, he's older than Mitch McConnell at this point. So,
no, I mean, Grassley's a perfect example. I mean, the fact that, and I talked about it before you came on, the fact that he said, Mike Pence might not be there. I'm going to preside over the Senate and all of this stuff, because I want to know what he meant by that. Now he's saying he was misrepresented and all that nonsense. I think there was much more to this, but we will find out. Last, I got to get your thoughts on this before I let you go. We saw the first Republican presidential debate. Trump was a no-show, of which I got to be honest. If I was advising Trump, I would have told him to stay away from all of these debates. Don't bother. I wouldn't go anywhere near them. I wouldn't give them any credibility whatsoever, because they're all the child's table, so to speak. The frame from the last debate. But Trump wants to debate Meghan Markle.
So this is the craziest story. He's interviewing Hugh Hewitt, and there's like this whole thing about Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis debating each other, because basically Gavin Newsom has just been needling the dude for years now. And so Hewitt was just like, well, what about you? Like, who do you want to debate? Like, what about Meghan and Harry? Do you think that'd be a good ratings grabber? And it's like, really? Like, this is how far we've gone now. We've gone all the way to British tabloid level with this race. Like, that's how bad this campaign is. Can we not please just be have like a normal political conversation with people, or does it have to be sensationalized reality TV?
No, and on that side of the aisle, yeah. Because here's the thing. Here's the reality. And this is what I've been saying for the longest time. Republicans don't have any ideas. So if you have no ideas, if you have no policy aims, if you have no way of selling yourself as a functional party with actual governing principles, you've got to make a sideshow. You've got to be the circus. You've got to be the bread and circus that they are. And so not surprising at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. And this is where we are now. I think what would be interesting to me is if Trump is going to be brave enough to debate Joe Biden.
No, I want him to debate Meghan Markle. Where's she at? I now gotta see this.
I want to get in here to it, because I think, Meghan is too nice. I think Harry just like flattens him with his sweet smile and British accent.
I saw that yesterday.
I have a thing for the gingers.
Okay, well, we've all got our thing. I do want to give you the last bit, because before we went on, you said that you saw the perfect headline. So I'm going to give you the chance to read the headline.
Dude, I wrote the best headline of all time. It's a story about the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, the former chairman, is mad about the mail that he's getting in his mailbox. And so my headline was, Trump co-defendant demands special prosecutor be removed for, quote, inappropriate mail contact. He got mail he didn't like.
I see what you did there. Are you sure it wasn't Matt Schlapp you were talking about?
You never know at this point with the Schlappy.
Again, we're in such a spot, such a weird spot, and again, the thing is still not talking about how we're going to make people's lives better, because they don't have any vision, any plans. But as always, Sarah, appreciate the time. Great work. Please keep it up. Make sure you check out Sarah's work over at rawstory.com. Sarah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Have an awesome weekend.
I am going to give it a try. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. This is, again, one of these weird kind of moments where I don't know how much further we can go into the circus world, but wouldn't it be nice to actually have, I don't know, something of a substantive debate? And I think Sarah's right. I wonder, in a debate with Biden, would Trump show up? I think he will. I'm pretty sure he will. But he's actually got a record to run on this time. He's actually got something he's got to defend. Just can't be the bully. Can't be the outsider anymore. Got a record. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back.
are moving out of society's comfort zone.
Earth just had its hottest summer ever recorded.
Tourists have been trapped on the island, unable to leave.
Extreme storms caused deadly floods in Brazil and Greece. Plus, Biden administration moves to block oil drilling in Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Again.
Again?
Again.
All of those deja vus and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
People are not affecting climate change. You're going to tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice?
I'm not going to tell you anything, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I wish you would just go away. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we are still trying to make sense of the endless summer of extremes, not only here in the U.S., but all around the globe.
Oh, indeed. And now the data is in. Last month was the hottest August on record globally since record keeping began in the mid-1800s. August was also the second warmest month ever, behind only July 2023. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization. The new record hot August caps a full season of brutal and deadly temperatures. The last 3 months were the hottest June, July, and August ever recorded globally by a significant margin, generating multiple prolonged extreme heat waves and extreme storms across the northern hemisphere.
People are not affecting climate change.
Oh, my God.
Japan recorded its hottest summer ever in 2023 and set a new all-time high national heat record. Australia notched its hottest winter ever in the southern hemisphere in more than a century of record keeping. In South America, numerous countries also set new all-time high winter heat records. Here in the U.S., 80 million Americans are suffering through yet another record-setting extreme heat wave, with blazing temperatures straining electric grids from Texas to Maine. Hot weather in 9 states forced schools that lack air conditioning to close or be dismissed early this week. According to a recent study, about 14,000 public schools that didn't need air conditioning in the 1970s will need cooling systems installed by 2025.
Only if you give a damn about people.
People are not affecting climate change.
Globally, a new analysis by Carbon Plan projects that by 2030, nearly 1 billion people will be exposed to at least 1 full month of dangerous extreme heat every year. This summer, global ocean temperatures also hit new record highs, significantly boosting extreme storms. In southern Brazil this week, a powerful cyclone triggered deadly flash floods in several cities, killing at least 31 as we go to air and displacing thousands. Southern Europe was hit by a massive storm that caused devastating flooding across Spain, Greece, Turkey, and Bulgaria. In Greece, which has been grappling with Europe's worst wildfire season in decades, the storm dumped a jaw-dropping 2 feet of rain in just 10 hours, inundating several cities. In an interview with PBS NewsHour, NASA Chief Scientist Gavin Schmidt emphasized that the infrastructure and systems of the 20th century were not built for the accelerating 21st century climate crisis.
I have a feeling he must have been out on the ledge at the time.
We are moving out of society's comfort zone. And that means that places that were prepared for a certain spread of temperature and a certain number of extremes are now being hit with larger extremes. They're being hit with higher temperatures, more intense rainfall. And the structures that we have, the infrastructure that we have, is just not being able to cope with that.
The World Meteorological Organization attributes the extreme events primarily to human-caused global warming from burning fossil fuels and warned that these records are unfolding before we see the amplifying warming effects of a new El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. But there is some good news.
Really? Is there?
Yes. U.S. federal regulators have halted a Trump-era rule that allowed highly flammable, liquefied natural gas bomb trains on the nation's railroads, pending a new review of the safety of transporting volatile substances that must be kept at extremely low temperatures when shipped.
That is good news.
And finally, the Biden administration this week moved to impose a permanent ban on oil drilling across millions of acres of pristine pristine Alaskan wilderness. The conservation action does not affect the controversial Willow Project due to a court judgment. In a separate announcement, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland moved to cancel all Trump-era drilling leases that had been permitted in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and restored the refuge's decades-long drilling ban.
Protections to be restored to ANWR.
Yep.
Excellent news. We'll take it. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So some interesting stories going on that make it kind of interesting. I mean, I look at there's a trial over at Google. You've got a judge vacating convictions in a bribery case over soccer broadcast deals. You've got a lot of this backroom stuff that doesn't get a lot of attention, and I thought this would be a good time to maybe get into some of the weeds. That's why I've asked our good friend Morris Pearl to come talk with us. Morris is the chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires, patrioticmillionaires.org, the website. Morris, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, it's great to be in your show, Rick. Thank you.
So walk me through. I see this story of this judge vacating these convictions of bribery over these soccer broadcasts. I don't watch soccer, so it was one of the things. Who knows? But this is an interesting argument with this Argentinian company. Walk me through some of this.
Well, basically, Fox Sports paid the head guy of the soccer league a big kickback in order to give them the rights to play like the World Cup on their network. And most people would call it kind of bribery. They fired the guy. It's considered a bad thing if you give money not to the soccer league but to the employee of the soccer league. But finally, the guys who were convicted 6 months ago in federal court here in the United States were let off now.
Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream